Um, so the format that I had in mind for this was that we will watch the videos in the order that they were created. So we'll watch the hands and foot video first and then PIT. I think after the first video, I'd like to just give us a moment to write down a few thoughts that come up, because after we've watched both videos, I'll kind of lead us into a conversation in kind of critiquing the work. I feel pretty far removed from these videos at this point. I made them with the help of Tobias, the first one at least 2 years ago now. So I guess in viewing these, I ask that you think about like what themes come up for you when you view these works, how these pieces make you feel, and then and just like what comes up for you, kind of like a general experience, writing about your experience in viewing. And then we'll kind of like engage in that conversation, and then we'll take a little break, maybe like a minute or two, and jump into talking a little bit about what it is to be making virtual work now for the probably foreseeable future. And I think I'm really interested to hear about how the dance medium has changed and how performance art has changed, and what that means for the way that dance and live performance exist. Pieces that maybe would feel ethereal, or like they're constantly changing, they're never the same, are now living in a format that is totally stagnant. And in my experience of editing video, it's pretty difficult to like go back and change and like rearrange an entire film. So I also offer that as something to think about when you are viewing the pieces. I'm a little nervous. I'm on a bouncy ball too, that's why I'm jumping. But I'm just gonna set up the videos. Thanks. Yes, but first.
And don't forget that you can hide your thumbnail videos by doing to the very far left at the top of them. It'll take everybody's image out.
Is it recording? Okay. I've got to wash my hands. And there I'll wash my hands. I have to wash my hands. But I also wash my hands. But I also to wash my hands. But I also to wash my hands. But I also wash my hands. But I also to wash my hands. But I also to wash my hands. But I also 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 wash my hands.
Cool. So I'm gonna actually leave the screen share up, but I'm just gonna give everyone a few minutes to write down any thoughts that come up or feelings, anything that resonates strongly with you. Just maybe like 2 minutes. All right, here we go.
Amalia, are you sharing the computer audio?
Are you having a hard time hearing?
I hear it, but I don't know if it's the original sound. Because I think if you have your microphone off, I don't know if we would be able to hear it. So do you know how to share the sound of the computer?
I don't. Do you?
Yes, if you go to where it says share screen,
Uh-huh.
and then on top where it says basic, advanced, do you see that? What do you see now?
Oh, yes, I see it. Music or computer sound only.
Yeah. Yes, you can click there, or at the lower left it says share computer sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you should be able to mute yourself and we can hear the video.
Okay, great. Let's try that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The sound seemed good from my end. So previously.
Amalia, you're now only sharing sound and not video. You're
No.
only sharing sound and not video, so you have to have both shared.
So maybe you should just continue.
I was gonna ask. Okay.
Just do the,
So go down share screen again, maybe?
let's do as we rehearsed it.
Here. Oh,
Ah, okay, okay.
I got it.
Cool.
And
You
now,
can
can
mute
I mute
yourself
myself?
there.
There. And I'll just give you a few minutes if you wanted to write down some things again. I'm like now reading through all the chat, the group chat messages.
Pardon me, for those of us who are idiots, I can see where to type to chat, but I can't figure out how to send it.
I think you can just like
Just
hit
hit return.
or
Ah,
but I was also offering that to if you wanted to write like in a book
yeah,
to then talk about. But I guess I want to open up the conversation, but just before that, bringing up, putting into the air that Zoom is weird. And so to be mindful of how long you're speaking and who's speaking. And so, yeah, that's all really. Just think about like whose voices you're hearing the most and giving everyone space. Some people need a little more time to talk. Yeah. I guess even if someone wants to say something that they wrote down in the chat, they can as well.
I'll say that I was super blown away, but besides that, that's maybe not helpful. I found it really like eerie to see bodies not facing me for so long. And I just kind of was like, whoa, yeah, where we always are looking at each other's faces and really front facing. And so it kind of like was kind of scary and really intriguing.
just to echo that, I thought the second piece, when you say the back piece, that's the piece we just saw, Pith, yeah? Okay. I'm not sure I quite get the choice of title, but that's okay. But I'd be curious to know why. But I just thought that was one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. I just thought that was extraordinary. And every possible level, it kept making me think, wow, how would it feel to be outdoors without a shirt, in the sun, in the wind, in the this? And I thought your choice of location was brilliant. I mean, really clever and used extremely creatively. And I should shut up because I'm just going to keep saying things like that. I thought that was wonderful.
I wonder if any of the dancers want to speak a little bit on the experience of being in it and then viewing the piece, whether it feels like the experience of performing it was similar to what it was than like seeing the finished product.
I feel like I look back on this day of being in that space with all of you, with this like warmth and playfulness, and the experience of being inside of the making of it felt very liberating and felt like, wow, we're in this beautiful place. It's so sunny. I'm making new friends. We are like literally feeling the wind on our skin and finding comfort in meeting each other, making some of these people I was meeting for the first time. And it's a vulnerable thing to be like, okay, we're all going to take our shirts off now. And I felt so comfortable at the same time. And it is interesting that seeing the piece, I'm resounding sort of with that eerie feeling that Megan spoke to. A feeling in watching it how strong the back is as the trunk of the body, and in this architecture of painted stone all around us, I do feel like, oh wow, like things feel very held and tight to see it. And when I was inside of it, I didn't feel held and tight. I felt expansive, and that's really interesting. The two feel in juxtaposition.
I wanted to say I really loved the part in Pith where all of the people were touching. I felt like that just felt really intimate, but also it was as the music was getting more tense, and it didn't look like it was such a comfortable, like the movement felt like there was tension, like there was like this like urgency to it. But for some reason, I felt like that part was really beautiful and just really intimate. And it just made me think about being in this kind of collective space of struggle and of tension and of like, hardship, and it felt really vulnerable, but in a really beautiful way. So I was really drawn in at that part. I already thought it was so beautiful just from like the first minute or so. But then, yeah, it just kept getting more and more enjoyable to watch. So thank you, Amalia. That was really gorgeous.
I was really captivated by the camera work. It felt very like fluid the entire time, which like is so hard to achieve. And at the same time, it like really complemented the softness of the backs. Like it was really lovely to see all of these bodies with the same like skin folds at the waist and like curvature of the shoulder blades. And I also thought of how, since we saw nobody's face in either films, like these can exist pre, post, and during COVID, which was really cool. I was like, oh, they could be wearing masks and I wouldn't know. So that was like a little bit exciting. But it wasn't as jarring as seeing other films where like you see faces and people close and I automatically am like, so that was really cool for me. Anyway, just some thoughts.
I think both of these films are really different from each other, but they both have that vulnerability, and just the fact that you talked about the creases and the folds in the body, and the attention that you begin to pay to the body is really the subject matter. And I think that the fact that there's no again, addressing the camera work, that there's no special effects or colorization or negative space, whatever those effects are, it's really choreographed for the camera and with the camera. She dances with the camera. She's really figured that out. Amalia's really figured that out. I think the two have different, the two films, and I had selected the second one to show in March. It they have different narratives too, which I think are really suggested or important to me anyway. And the second film is so strong about, to me, they look like a kind of a group, like almost like Vestal keepers of, you know, like some temple, but the temple is a ruin, you know, of a post-industrial place that's been, you know, decorated, and, you know, and it has such this wonderful feel about it, in the way that you have the motions you have selected, the, you know, and tonight, I've watched this, of course, many times. I noticed that when across the river through that portal, it says Oracle. So it just, you know, suddenly it really felt there was this present, ancient, you know, mix, you know, of images and feelings. So I think that's a very strong factor in the second work, but the first work as well, because of the public space. You know, there's this guy doing the Rocky move, and there are your feet. You know, it just this wonderful, you know, call back to the body in an urban world.
I'd like to read some of what I wrote. So here's about the first film. Squishy feet, squishy mud, squishy delicious. Colorful colors, red juicy pokeberries, child feelings. My world, my grass, my feet, my oyster. Playing on stones, in wet, in soft, in silky, in color. Popping out of all the sensing, leaving, where to? And the second film, The Best Graffiti Palace. Such long lines of columns, one after another, decorated to the hilt. The backs, the dancers, sway, swivel, right of arriving, of gathering, of finding sinuous, slithery spines, right of midsummer, of vanishing, of popping out into tall grass, how to be exposed and protected at the same time.
I have some
Yes.
questions for
All right.
Amalia and maybe the dancers. Knowing this place is a public space, I wonder if you had people around, or you had to avoid seeing tourists. That's one. Second, I was curious about the two locations. Like, I know they're close to each other, but one is more like covered and the other one is outdoors. I wonder if you that the choice of having the two locations and how to, because I did have the feeling in one to be more claustrophobic. Although I know it's quite open, it still gave me that feeling. Maybe the choice of the close-ups in the camera. I have another question. I'll throw them all out, and you can answer whatever you want. Did you? I'm curious, since we didn't hear the real sound, it was all recorded sound. If you were screaming like behind the camera, like, "Now I'm coming! Now move to the right, move to the left," and so on. And the last questions, as a maker, what do you feel the relationship between the movement material and the architecture of the space is? Like, were you inspired? Were you affected by the columns, and so on? That's all.
Thank you. I wonder if any of the dancers wanna answer first, and then I'll say something.
Well, that day, yeah, just watching the video brought me back to that day. Yeah, and how good it felt, like Evelyn was saying, just, yeah, no, it was an amazing day to be with people, and how everything worked out and carpooling, and it was just beautiful. Um, but no, we walk onto the set, and we think it's gonna be uh, like a quiet place to just take our shirts off and start moving. Um, but we had to actually like, well, they did it before anybody else did. Like we scoped out the place and made sure everything was good, cleaned up what we needed to. And then at a certain time, there was a bike race that was like going to come through the path. So we had to, there was like people coming through with yeah, just stuff to get ready for the trail that they were going to have. It was a lot, and having to like cover ourselves or like turn around because we heard a noise, and it's like guys walking by like fishing at the end. So yeah, the public was definitely there, and felt yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I don't remember anything else.
Um, a few things in answering Albert's question about the directions. I was thinking about that at one point when Maddie started running. I don't think I was, I think I had left at that point, but you know, like the slow walk and then all of a sudden this running, and in my head I was like, oh, was he like, you know, I'll tell you when to start running, and then just thinking about him having this handheld thing and then also running and like trying to hold on, because there wasn't a stable, what do you call it, like a stabilizer to hold the camera. It was all like handheld. So also thinking about like as you're recording it, of being like making sure you were keeping it like centered, and all of those things were also going through my head. I think in the beginning too, I heard the cues of you like calling everyone's name to walk out of the parts, because that was like a part of it too. And so even watching the video and hearing the sound, I was like waiting for my cue of when I was gonna walk and who I was gonna walk after. Wow, yeah, no steady cam, exactly. But some thoughts that I had along the lines of sound, my thought process in watching the first one is at first felt like the sound was on top of what was happening. So I was like, okay, I'm like seeing the hands happening and like hearing the sound in a separate part of my like brain. But then at the end, when it was like all coming together, I started to hear more clearly that it was like things being done with the hands. Like, you know, it became a like, oh, these are things that hands and feet are doing and like sounds that they're making. So that like came to sense for me. And then the second one felt so synonymous as far as like the sound happening and the movement, that I was like, did Amalia make this sound like, or like was the sound made for the movement happening? Like the way that it was going, it felt so together that it was more like, I would say like the first one was like the experience of using phalanges, is that what those things are called? And then the experience and the atmosphere of what was going on as a whole inside of Graffiti Pier, because of like everything that was together, you know? Yeah.
Yes, all those things. And the space definitely influenced I think the feeling and the movement, and even the way that like then the pieces came together. The first piece wasn't planned at all. Like there was not really any script or like order of shots in the way that the second film was. So I would say that like that piece especially, but both of them were like very influenced in the way that site-specific work is. And then I'm wondering if Grace or Maya, you want to talk a little bit, because Chloe brought up the sound from the first video, if you wanted to speak a little bit about what we did.
Maya? No, we can both talk, I guess. Yeah, it was cool. We are like childhood friends, Amalia and Maya and Anna, and Allie was also there, and Amalia was just in Boston, and it was kind of just like a night, and we, Amalia just kind of talked to us about what she kind of wanted their sounds to be, and we were just kind of playing with things on the table and like singing and playing a little guitar and stuff. So it was all very like kind of improvised, I would say. And we also, I totally forgot we did that silly like little chant thing where like we sang in a round and then it ended up being like hands and foot. So it was funny to hear again. Yeah, I don't know. It was cool. It was cool to see it like interplay with the audio, with the video, after we had just done that for one night. But I really loved the end with the guitar and Maya and I singing. I really liked how it sounded.
That was really fun, and it was cool to see that in how you chose to put it with the video too. I feel like the sound like played such a role, and it felt so different, like in a way apart from the images that I was seeing. And so it added like a whole dimension. I kind of wrote that in the chat, but added like a whole different dimension to what I was viewing and what I was like feeling and experiencing when watching the video. And a part that I really liked too was like, I remember soda cans, where you were like, oh, we're gonna play a lot with soda cans and like the, or I don't know how to make that sound, but that was a sound that was really, I don't know, interesting for me.
Recognizable maybe too.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, that I think like Chloe, you mentioned the like then understanding that it's things that are happening with the hands, that's making the soundtrack for the hands and foot, which was not intentional, but we were sitting at a table and we were banging on the table and moving things around the table, and that was the soundtrack. That's what it kind of became. Are there any other thoughts that come up? I mean, I'm definitely open to like thoughts about like maybe what didn't work, or like I guess, yeah, I don't know, anything else that comes up.
There was a moment that was for me with the hand video where it was like the hands with the purple nail polish that matched the thing it was on, and it was like I wanted it to be like we were grabbing and had tension, but it was like so soft that my brain was like, oh, they're just placing their hands. That was a moment of, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It was just like a disconnect where I was like desiring something.
Well, I think if these are your first forays into filming and dancing for film, making screen dances, there's really not that much to critique. I think you're on a good trail, and I hope that you'll, try this medium again, with your choreographic eye and your sensibility of the body. Just put that out.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think
you learn by doing, right? I mean, you learn for your own self, like, oh, I'm not quite happy with that. So,
Yeah. I think Haley brings up this interesting point of like, and I have this experience too in watching these films, and I think just like watching film in general is feeling like, oh, I wish that this moment was just a little bit different, and or like, oh, this makes me cringe in a certain way, and there's like, or like this is not quite right, and the like most difficult thing I feel about making like film work is that then you can't really go back and change that stuff. It's like filmed once, and then that's the footage that you're watching over and over and over and over again, and you've like committed to that because you can't go and refilm Yeah, and so I'm like curious also in this time when I think a lot of movement artists and performance artists have had to shift into making pretty much all virtual art. And then like what are the complications in that? Is that medium like totally satisfying, or yeah, like what comes out of that, or what experiences have people had?
I feel like you know, I'm personally in making not a fan of anything ever being finished per se, and I think it's fun to show the same thing over and over again, and maybe there are things that are different, and it's like, you know, how do you keep releasing something and like trusting people will want to engage regardless if all of it is the same except for a minute. Like, I think it's a fun relationship could be made between you having the power as the creator and director and what you're outputting. Maybe even you wouldn't have to tell anyone, or, you know, it's like changing the link on your YouTube where it's like, this is actually the one I want. And whether you announce it or not, it's the different one now. And who, like, I don't know, the one person who's really committed and has watched it 5 times will be like, I noticed at minute 5, this was not like whatever you uploaded last time. Like, I think there's like an experimental aspect where you can also become a performer as the director in a sense, you know, where it's like, I'm choosing to upload version 5 on Thursday, December 3rd, and then every week you can go back and forth, you know, like I feel like it's really all up to you and what you want to do. I would say like big movies and however all of that works. I wrote in the comments like director's cut, because I feel like a lot of times that's essentially what happens, where it's like, you know, they put out the hour 45 2-hour movie, but then they release the director's cut, which is like 2 hours longer because it has all of the other things that they didn't include in the final cut. And a lot of people may choose to watch that one because they're like, yeah, I want to know what happened that I didn't see when I paid to go to the theater, blah, blah, blah. You know, I think you can do whatever you want.
The virtual medium is never going to be equivalent. But physical dance is not going to go away either. It's just hibernating. We're hibernating, okay? And it may be a long hibernation, but it's not going away. I mean, there are so many of us who long for it to be live and embodied. So it seems like this moment is really about diving into what the possibilities are. And there are people who are doing that, like yourself. And, you know, I imagine, you know, you're figuring out how you can work with this moment. But, you know, a lot of people are working with it. And, you know, I think there are some aspects of bringing people together in formats like this that we never experienced before. And that's pretty cool. And that we could be geographically united, I mean, online when we're not, you know, like people are in Boston or whatever, and dance, like live dance doesn't do that in that way. So like for us to be able to appreciate what this medium allows feels to me maybe more open-ended, hopeful, knowing that we're not kissing our beloved art form goodbye.
If I can just add something fast to that idea, it seems to me, I mean, personally, I've just been very impressed by the admittedly too few examples I've seen, not just of Amalia's work, but of other people who've essentially been forced to become filmmakers, which is no small thing. And I think something about the creativity that seems to make amazing transitions from one form to another, which I think deserves great applause and support. Obviously, it's frustrating. Certainly, just as a viewer, it's frustrating. But the pieces we just saw wouldn't have existed. I mean, there are plenty of shows. There have been since what, the 60s at least. There have been dance performances, live dance performances, where the audience, follows around to different places. I mean, sure, but it's not what we just saw. And it's not that it's better or worse, but it's different. And something that Terry said a little while ago, that I think she said, was having seen the second piece several times and then suddenly noticing a word that was visible. I mean, the good thing, again, it's not live dance, and that's always the best, but something that's exciting and different about the sort of anti-performance thing, which is you never, in a live performance, you never see the same thing twice. You never do the same thing twice. That's incredibly exciting. But on the flip side, there is something kind of cool about being able to go back to it. I come at that from visual art history. A painting in a museum presumably isn't going to change. It's going to be the way it is. But you're going to change, and you're going to notice something. Hopefully, you'll notice something different every single time. And that's another aspect of the richness of all the arts that nobody wanted to have to deal with right now for these reasons. But it is there. And I'm looking forward to seeing your pieces if I can. 85 or 90 more times. I mean, I think there's that much to them. And I couldn't possibly do that live, if that made any sense at all.
One of the great things about being a presenter is, particularly when I was at Dance Space Project, and we'd have 3 performances in a row. So every night you could see how different the live performance was, and and I could also watch rehearsals, so I could watch this whole incredible process of coming together and of course being live. It was just so exciting, and watching how the audience energy lifted it up or down, or so that watching, that attention, it really was a gift, and we're very lucky to be able to do that, because if you can only afford to buy the ticket for one night or something, it's a very different experience, and you try to hold all of that in. And I think there is a real difference between seeing the film and seeing the dance, but I think there's a connection because they're both in motion. They're both deep and involved in movement, and so the choreographer's eye with the film, I think, gives a special aliveness to it, or has that potential. Anyway, yeah.
I kind of want to challenge the idea that live performance will always be the best, because I love dance film, and I think these were made 2 years ago, and I love seeing dance film made or filmed by dancers, because it's different than when it's filmed by a filmmaker, like traditionally. I really enjoy the medium as a creator of it myself, because I find that the editing is like choreography. So you could film like a 20-minute improv and make a bajillion different versions just through editing, like those choreographic cuts. So just to throw that out there. I'm along for the live performance. I also love the dance film.
I think that's what I was trying to say, that, having that eye, can create some amazing, and can actually do things that you can't do on the stage or in the moment, or can take you up close when you sometimes, are in the 15th row or whatever. So I think that I agree with you that they're both wonderful forms,
To second that a bit, I've been missing live dance so much, and I just jumped on the Jacob's Pillow website a couple of days ago, and they have an amazing archive of filmed dances from the last 100 years. And to your point, Terry, you're able to watch Ted Sean's original dancers and Ted dancing with his dancers, and then you're able to, through this evolution of the interpretation of Sean's dances, see contemporary interpretations of his dances 3 minutes later, 5 minutes later, which is something that, we would never be able to do with live performance. So it is, I like that you're suggesting, Terry, that they sit alongside each other rather than that there's a hierarchy. And there's meaning in the repetition also. I mean, I really enjoyed being able to watch the same dances over and over and over and over again, the recorded dances. And like you said, you notice the word on the wall in a completely different way. So I silver lining here for what we're going through right now, as Lisa and Nancy both said. And your work is gorgeous, Amalia.
I popped in a bit late because I had to work, sorry, but I was only able to watch the back video. The other link didn't work for me, Amalia, but I think I apologize if y'all already talked about it. There are so many things in that back video that it couldn't have been done live. Like it would have been impossible. And there was like moments with the musicality where, like dancers would fall, you would see their back and they would fall down, then all of a sudden you're in front of them and they're bending over. And the thing where my brain is like, where did they fall to when they were falling to the, I'm just trying to, because my brain's like, what, did they go into a plank and then roll over? Did they fall into the water? They couldn't have fallen into the water. But it's a cool little moment of, there's so many transitions that were really beautiful. And as you're as the camera's panning, it looks like it's a one shot. And if I didn't know to look for certain people, it's not, but you were really sneaky in editing it. Not sneaky, you were very talented in editing it, because somebody would be over so far away, and then you're panning, and then all of a sudden they're also right here, and which would have been impossible, or maybe they're just magic and very fast runners, I don't know. They just ran behind the camera. But it's fun to think about how it was made, but also it's really, really beautiful just to watch. There were so many moments I'm like, wow, this is lovely. I would definitely watch that. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I would definitely watch that loads of times, with or without pandemic. It was really breathtaking. Great job, Maya, really.
I guess I just wanted to say one other thing that I'm thinking about is that this experience, the moment of the performance, and what the dancers kind of have talked about, is so different from what then the piece actually became. So even with director's cut, it's the memory of the experience is something, even though it wasn't intended to ever be a performance, it still feels like part of the process. And I wonder, then that's why people also watch these videos of how a movie is made, because you will want to see all the behind the scenes, and that that in itself is really interesting to me to see that. And I see it when I watch this piece, which I hadn't seen in a while, and I'm now rewatching it, and I get to remember the whole experience of what it was to film it, which is really beautiful. But then I'm curious, is that enough in the is that enough in the film, or what's missed, and then what's missing.
Amalia, I don't think anything's missing. I think everybody gets to view it through their own lens and their own life experience, and sort of just like when we watch regular dance pieces in person, everybody gets to make their own interpretation of what they're watching with what they've come to the theater with. So the same thing when you're watching a video. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But you get what I'm kind of saying. Like, you're not missing anything. You know what you're doing. Trust yourself on this one, seriously. And I cannot get over the collaborative vibe of your group and the fact that you're hearing your dancers' voices and the musician voices and your own voice, and like, bravo.
Yes, I just want to say, like, shout out to all the people involved in making this. Thank you for reminding me, because it really feels like both processes were very collaborative, and that's what made them so fun. I mean, the second process was definitely like a little bit more stressful for me, because I had to like hold space for people, and there was like so much to think about, and being the person who was like filming and directing, and Tobias and I were kind of like switching back and forth between those roles, and then also like wanting to like direct the dancers to have something to do when we had to like chat about what the next scene was going to be. So that was definitely a more stressful process. But I think especially in the first, like for example, the way the music came about, like that, I mean, that wasn't me, you know, that was like us sitting together at a table, and like Grace and Maya's beautiful voices. Like, I can't sing like that. And I don't know, it just came out of us talking and hanging out together. And my brother too. My brother is the first thing you hear in that first video. He was just like, oh. And I was like, perfect, it's in the piece, you know. and that's really special. I think that like I mean I can't do that.
I think that piece of memory and the creation of it, at least for me, came through in the first piece, because it feels so playful. And like, I've had moments of like opening a soda can or like doing a fun round with friends. And I feel like at least I can feel that. And kind of to Bethany's point, like, I loved hearing Terry's interpretation of the second one of like keepers of this temple, because for me, it was like business people on revolt throwing their shirts off and like because of the belts and the pants. And so I got a totally different story just because we're in different rooms in different places thinking about different things. And so the beauty of everybody being able to have a little different piece is part of the fun.
Right, you don't want to give too much of the serendipity away. You want everyone to have their own, you know, their own guessing about how it's made and about what they're receiving and everything. So, but this has been really wonderful. Are there more comments? Or Amalia, do you feel like you have gotten some critique and feedback that you desired? Or
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys all so much for being here. It's like really nice to see everyone's faces in the room, and I'm really glad to have had a space to rewatch these two pieces again. I think it, like, having had a lot of space from the last time that I viewed them, I felt really different viewing them this time. So yeah, it definitely adds something to have time away from it, and you see different things. And yeah, thanks for coming. I hope all of this gets saved, this group chat.
yeah,
I'm not able to like read all of this at the same time. Thank you.
better save the chat. And also, Lisa Krause, who's a former Trisha Brown dancer, has put in some links to a Vimeo, which may be of interest to people as well. So take a look at that. Yeah, I'm really excited to see when the smoke clears or whatever happens from this time that we're in, to see how you carry this forward, both in the live work and if you take up, filming again. So thank you, and we'll keep everybody posted about that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, making these pieces now would probably be impossible, especially that second one.
Yeah.
So even though it is filmed, we're watching it in a virtual way.
Yeah.
The actual creation of having that many bodies together touching is not actually something that would be possible now.
Yeah, it's amazing, just amazing. So this too shall pass, right? So thanks so much again, Amalia, for sharing all this exploration. It's really, really important, and we really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for coming to our informances. PDP, we're going to try to do some more in the winter and in the spring, because it seems to be a way to keep our dancers involved and audiences and to keep dance before the public. So we're really excited and want to keep doing that until we can, get out in the real world. What else did I want to say? We offer this for free admission, and if you'd like to make a contribution, you can go to our website and do that. But we know everyone's in a situation, so we're happy to offer this as free. And wishing everyone the best of good health. Keep wearing that mask, and hope you get a little dancing in to lift your spirits now and then. So thank you again. Thank you, Amalia, and good night.